This is WPSL Port St. Lucie, the talk of the Treasure Coast.
The views expressed on the following program are not necessarily those of WPSL. But you're encouraged to like and share them on Facebook. It's time for the African American Scene. Brought to you each week at this time by Howard Insurance of Port St. Lucie. And here is your host, Rudy Howard.
Good evening, good evening, good evening. Always glad to be with you here on a Wednesday night. Wow, there's a lot going on. Hope Hicks resigned. Donald Trump says that he's prepared to go with some gun control measures. Wow, wow, wow. But we'll see if that happens, because he's been known to say stuff like that before and then not follow through. And I have a guest who I've known for a long time, because her and I at one time served on the Allegheny Franciscan Foundation, where we did some great work for our communities. Tonight we're going to talk about immigration. And Marisol Zewueira is an immigration lawyer. So give him a good evening, Marisol.
Good evening, everyone. I am so happy and pleased to be here today. Thank you for inviting me, Rudy.
Thank you for coming. Now, I especially want conservative Steve, who called me up a couple weeks ago to fight with me about immigration. Now, we got an immigration lawyer in here, so
a real lawyer, not a paid spokesperson. Right?
That's right. So,
No.
so have at it. You can call up 340-1590 and fight with her, and she will blow your way, because she does this for real. Now, this is my last night of February for Black History, so I'm going to have 2 Black History trivia questions and give away 2 certificates to Dr. Irby's Eye Care Center. Next week, and I will probably be on at 5 o'clock because there's a 6 o'clock game for IRSC. I'm having author Gerard Hosenhedel, who wrote a book called Compassionate Capitalism, which I'm reading. And it's quite interesting, and we're going to talk about it. The Intersection of Economic Growth and Social Justice. Very interesting book. And he lives in Port St. Lucie, and I'm reading the book now, so it should be good. First trivia question. I'm going to give you a description, and you have to tell me who it is. I received 2 undergraduate degrees and a medical degree, served 2 years as a Peace Corps medical officer in West Africa, and was selected to join the National Aeronautics Space Administration astronaut training program. Her 8-day space flight aboard Space Shuttle Endeavour 1992 established her as the first female African American to travel in space. I was born October 17th, 1956. Now, if you can tell me who that is, I know that's a tough one, but I've been trying to give you this year. Normally I give you all the basic ones. I'm trying to give you names of people that have made significant contributions that you haven't heard about. Like we found out last week about Mark Dean. So,
was she a payload specialist? Oh, did I make a wild guess?
No.
Okay.
Okay, folks. So, until we get a phone call about that, but right now we are going to get into the big DACA debate. This is huge. And I also want you to know that Marisol has roughly 40 or 50 DACA cases that she's representing right now. The first thing, Marisol, I want to get into is there's such a misunderstanding or a bad perception about what it takes to be a DACA recipient?
Yes, there's definitely a lot of misunderstanding, and if I may, and I can probably we can just take these requirements off, so that your listeners can just at least understand what this is. First of all, this is an executive action. Deferred action is it was born out of an executive order. We all know that it was President Obama on June 15th of 2012 that actually decided that because Congress had not effectively passed any kind of legislation to help this group of individuals, that he was going to do the only thing he could do, which was through executive power, allow them to remain in the United States in this what we call a quasi-legal status, which basically gives them employment authorization, the ability to get a driver's license and a social security number together with that employment authorization, and that's all basically they get. They're in limbo until something else happens. So this group of people are people who were brought to the United States prior to their 16th birthday. They have to have been physically present in the United States as of June 15th of 2012, which is the day the executive order was signed into by the president. And they have to demonstrate that they've been living in the United States, that they've been here physically present since that time. And what that requires is a lot of documentation, not just letters from your friends. And there's a reason why I emphasize that, because a lot of people think, oh, they just sign up and that's it.
Yes, exactly.
They have to also have either graduated from high school, be in presently in a course of study, either going to high school or going to college, or have gotten their GED, or have served in the military, which many chose to do after high school.
And trade school too.
And trade school, yes. They can be vocational schools, but they have to have been recognized by the Department of Education in the state where you live. So the other important thing to note is that because it's what we call a discretionary form, discretionary benefit, and it's in the discretion of the Attorney General of the United States, who effectively is the head of Department of Homeland Security and Immigration. They set the rules, and they can essentially deny DACA to someone based on whatever criteria they determine. That is, aside from these four corners of what I've told you. So if anybody has anything more than the third misdemeanor crime, even if it's just something like a traffic violation, your third misdemeanor, you're out. Anything like a DUI, any felonies, you're not eligible for DACA. So the reason why I'm explaining this is because they're definitely not criminals. They're young people that came here through no fault of their own. They were brought by their parents, and that were undocumented until this deferred action was.
Let me get Steve in here now. So we got Steve on line one. Yes, sir.
Thank you. A little bit of background. I was born and raised on the border with Mexico, down in Brownsville, Texas. I was born in 1949 down there on Brownsville. I went to a school where I went to a private school. God bless my parents for doing all the things they did for me. And the majority of the students who were there were from on the other side of the river. But that's just a little prelude to the environment that I grew up in. I never had any issues with people who I interacted with, of whom the majority were of Hispanic nature. I left home. I went to Houston. I fell in love with a woman from another country, and I went and moved over there. I came back here. My wife is of Cuban descent. She went through the entire process of going through all the things that were necessary for her to become a citizen of the United States. She's of Cuban descent. She was pushed out of her country. She eventually came here. She went through the process, 5 years, the whole 9 yards, and then eventually passed a test and became a citizen of this country. She did everything legally, and and that is something that's very important to me. We are talking now in a day and in an age where people are coming over here not legally, and I think you all understand what I'm saying. This is not a legal process in terms of how they cross the border. Many of them, I'm not going to say most of them or a minority of them, I'm simply saying this is what has happened. I look at this and I say to myself, my wife came here to this country legally, and she went through the entire process of residency and then eventually citizenship legally according to the laws that are written in our country. Now we see people who come here who don't come here legally nor attempt to come here legally. And yet we are going through a process of trying to legitimize their position of being able to become citizens of the country without having to go through the process that others have gone through.
Can I ask you a question?
I'm not saying that they are.
Wait. Can I ask you a question, Steve?
And I believe.
Yeah. Let me just ask you a question. How much did that process cost you? What did you pay to have
Me
your
personally,
wife?
it did not cost me personally. It cost my wife.
Well, what did it cost your wife to become
In
a
terms
citizen?
of dollars?
Yes.
No, it was not a matter of dollars.
Well,
it was
I'm
a
asking the
matter of
question.
going through the process.
But let me.
of doing all
But you got to answer my question.
do.
I want to know what the dollar cost was for your wife becoming a citizen.
Well, I want to continue this, please.
No. You have to answer that question first. I want to know what
What's
the
the
dollars. I want to know what the cost of the dollars were for your wife to become a citizen.
Not a cost of dollars. It was a cost of going through the process to
Did
find.
she pay any money? Did she pay any money?
He was allowed to come in.
Did she pay any money?
Rudy, and I have a further question. Cubans have a sweet deal that no other immigrant in any other country all over the world have, and they are allowed to come in here, get on a plane, come to the United States, and if because they're Cuban, they're allowed to they're admitted, and within a year and a day they get their residency. No other nationality gets that.
Constitution. This country.
And my comment to you as far as what the legal issue is, I don't disagree with you that there's a legal process that has to be pursued. And in your wife's case, she was a beneficiary of the politics of the time.
Yes, exactly. That is
But
true.
let me tell you about these children, though, so that you understand, and maybe there's a little bit of an understanding. First of all, there's no legislation that is advocating that these people jump the line and don't do what your wife had to do, which was get her residency, become a resident for X number of years, and then apply for naturalization. All people are advocating for is that these kids that came here through no fault of their own, same as your wife led a country that was in turmoil through no fault of her own, these kids were brought here through no fault of their own. And what you're saying is, but they were brought here illegally, so they have to go back to a country they don't know, they don't speak the language, and they don't understand. And I disagree with you. If we're talking about regular other illegal immigration, we can have that discussion. There's a lot of other issues that come into play. But when it comes to this issue, the one we're discussing today with the DACA recipients, these kids were brought here as children.
Listen, let me say to you this right now. I don't have any disagreement with you in regards to these DACA children. I don't have any problem with this. I don't have any problem with this at all, and I am in agreement with you totally and completely. I understand this. It's just that what I do not understand is why we are at a point in time where the two political parties can allow for the existence of over, nearly 2 million people to become legal citizens of this country through our process. Why are we not agreeing on this for them. I don't have a problem with this. You and I, we don't have a disagreement. But what is going on here? Why is it that we can't get these people legitimized? What is the problem? I don't understand it.
I don't understand your question. You're saying, what is the problem? Why can't we get people that come through the border legalized? Or are you talking about these kids? Because I'm not sure which one we're talking about. If we're talking about, the supposedly 11 million people that are undocumented in this country, many come to the country illegally, admittedly so, for many, many different reasons. A lot of them are economic. A lot of them are fleeing, incredible violence. So I really don't. If you agree with me on DACA, I mean that's my main concern right now. But I would, if it's about other illegal immigration, I mean we can spend weeks talking about this and we never get to.
Yes, we can. But let me ask you something: Is there such a thing as illegal immigration? Is there? And if there is, please explain it to me, because I need to know that.
Okay, well, most people that come through the border, and as you know, the illegal entries have diminished significantly, not just since the Trump administration, but even before that.
That's true.
The Obama administration was very heavy-handed on deportations.
Yes.
What they did that was different from this administration is that they prioritized violent criminals as opposed to people who were driving without a license or who had, basically minor infractions. They prioritized what they consider dangerous criminals. This administration changed that policy completely and has decided that as long as you crossed the border or you overstayed your visa and you're here unlawfully, that's what that means, illegally. You either crossed the border undetected or you overstayed your visa. That's what makes you illegal. You don't have any status in this country. And this administration has decided, rightly or wrongly, I can give you my opinion, but there's obviously always two sides to every story, that they're going to basically not have a priority. That if you're illegal, it doesn't matter whether you're a criminal or you're just Joe Schmo with 5 U.S. citizen kids trying to make a living, hoping that someday one of your children will be able to petition for you and legalize you. Which a lot of people are waiting for that. These people are being targeted as well. Now,
okay, then let me ask you something, because really what I'm trying to do here is reach a moment where I can understand one side versus the other, and hopefully come to an understanding of what it is we need to do that one side and the other side agrees is what is legitimate migration into this country. And I hope that you understand what I just said to you just now.
Okay, no. I understand you now. What you're you're basically, talking about the general immigration debate. And this is what I think is keeping the Democrats and the Republicans from reaching an agreement. And it had the conservative Republicans are basically against any kind of immigration, even legal immigration. They're against the business immigration. They're against family reunification immigration. They think that's excessive. They're against
that's the extreme. That's the extreme right.
Okay,
we also have an extreme left.
No,
and
of course.
I hope you understand what that is. Can you define the extreme left for me as well as you have defined the extreme right?
The extreme left were people that think that we should live in a country with open borders, that everybody should be free to walk in. Is how some people define the extreme left. I think most people, you and I will agree, most people fall somewhere in the middle. I want my country to have borders, and I want people to respect those laws. What I also want, though, is an immigration policy that works, which, by the way, the one we have doesn't. Immigration laws that are not draconian, that take into consideration the human toll and the human factor, and take into consideration people who have been here for years illegally but have made contributions, have United States citizen children, and that maybe should be allowed to in some way pay their way through this. And I think we should also have very, very stringent border security. I don't believe in a wall, not because I don't think we don't have to have security. I just don't think that, and you having lived in the border understand this, there's parts of the border that you can't build a wall. There's
There are people, even in my hometown, who are afraid to go across the border because at night they hear gunshots. I was born and raised in Brownsville, Texas. I never lived in fear the way it exists today on the border.
Steve, I'm
For
going to
me
have to let you
to
go. Steve, I'm going to have to let you go. I thank you for being a listener, and I thank you for calling in, but I got another caller. Steve.
The other Steve, our Steve.
Steve.
Yes,
Hey, there.
Yay, how you doing, Steve?
not too bad.
Okay.
Boy, that was confusing.
sorry.
I might need a Xanax after that one. Is anybody familiar with the book called The Trail of Harvest?
No.
Nope, never read
Okay,
that.
that was a book written about, remember when people used to come out of Mexico and they would harvest the crops and follow the harvest all the way across the Midwest, up into Michigan where they'd pick with apples and cherries, up where I live. And then they'd come back down, do the tobacco, and then back to Mexico with a fistful of greenbacks.
Mm-hmm.
They could feed their family, and they were content. Well, that went along great until some American figured out, hey, I can hire these guys cheaper to do this work that I'm normally hiring this American, which started a resentment. This isn't about kids. I'm not going to take a kid that grew up here when he's 2 years old, never doesn't speak the language, and send him back to Mexico. That's not happening.
I agree.
At
Me
the
and
same
Marisol
time-
agree with you. That's, to me, that's
But
even
I,
a moral issue.
you know, but I hear your point. I mean, there's a lot of layers to this immigration debate, and we were just touching on some very confusing ones with the prior caller. But there's also the issue of employment and the issue of displacement of American workers, and I think you definitely have hit on a very sore spot on the immigration debate. There are
Well,
certainly.
let me interrupt you just for a minute. Americans are for illegal immigrants when the lawn needs cutting, the car needs washing, the house needs painting,
Exactly.
anything like that. But other than that, oh my God, I don't want to see them. I don't want them around.
Well,
I mean, we've become a country of hypocrites.
thank you.
Yeah, I tend to stay away from mirrors.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know they crack when I go by them. I
You,
don't know why.
you know, let me just share something about. I've been doing this work for 20 some years, and one of the things that I can tell you that is this consistent, never surprises me, is the times that I have people come into my practice who are employers who need this particular employee because he's the best of the crew they have, and they are just begging me, what can I do to make him legal? And I'll explain how that's not possible because of A, B, and C, but they are just held back because this is the employee that they can't live without. Conversely, I have the people that come in and have, they're from, you know, a little bit more well-developed countries, and they are constantly pointing the finger at the illegal immigrants that are you know, just getting in here, and they're just committing crimes and doing all these things. I mean, I think we are a country of hypocrites. I think we use our immigration population for the things that we want. I mean, there's the agricultural. I think our agriculture will completely go down the pike. I think we're already having issues in California
Absolutely.
and western
I'm glad you said
states
that. Yeah.
because there's not enough people to pick the crops.
Exactly. That's why lettuce is $2 a head at Publix.
Well, guess what? I think if things keep going the way they're going, in about 2 or 3 years, we're going to have tomatoes at outrageous prices. Lettuces,
You know,
avocados millennials are going to run for the border.
We supply billions every year to Mexico by buying illegal drugs. People never touch on that little fact. If you put, you know, our president, somebody's president, wants to put $18 billion into nonsense equipment for the border when he could put boots on the ground, he could put more drones up, he could do lots of things. And he wants to build this stupid wall for $180 million. The Mexicans are laughing. They're thinking about building a baseball stadium on the other side, and if you hit it out of the park, that's over the wall.
I think there's a lot of better uses for $18 billion. I think we could, invest them into our VA system. We could give it to our, to the armed forces and not just for guns.
Go, yeah, right, Steve. I got to let you go. I got
right,
calls backed up here. Thank you, Steve. Mandy on line 1. Yes, Mandy.
Mandy.
Hi.
Yes.
Hi there. Thanks for taking my call. I just want to say that I love your program.
Thank you.
Yes, and I had a question for you guys. I was wondering how you guys felt if this administration or any other administration allows the DACA kids, which I sympathize with them because of their situation. They were children when they were brought here. However, if they are allowed, what are your feelings about, now I know that their parents were the ones that were probably responsible for them crossing illegally. I know a lot of the parents are here in the States illegally. I was questioning maybe what your thoughts were on if they do allow the DACA kids legal status and a path to citizenship when they are citizens. What about them petitioning for their parents who did, in fact, kind of like do the no-no? Now you have what's called chain migration, and you have like waves and waves of more people that really didn't follow the laws.
Well, my opinion on this, it's a little bit more complex than that. First of all, the chain migration that you hear about is really adult children petitioning for parents when they're adult U.S. citizen children or lawful permanent residents petitioning for their spouses. All of that is what they are referring to as chain migration, and this has been a system that has been in place for a century. I mean, it used to be that the motto of our immigration system was family reunification. So that's what they're referring to chain migration. What you're talking about, as I understand it, is giving a parent a benefit as a result of giving these kids the benefit, giving the parent the benefit down the line.
The DACA, yes, because the DACA children, to no fault of their own, are here illegally. But parents, we're assuming, of course, there's many circumstances, but parents were actually the ones, perhaps, that were responsible for that criminal entry.
Okay.
Now, let's just move into the future. Let's say the DACA kids are allowed, and they are adults, and they can petition for their parents. Isn't that kind of like rewarding more or less the parents' bad deeds?
I guess let's go back to the parents' bad deeds. I think I've been doing this for a number, before the immigration became this big hot button. So I've seen waves of immigrants. And what I can tell you is that most of the people that I see, and there are exceptions, there's people that come here to do bad things, but they're not the great majority. But most of the people that came here, they came here because there were jobs. In many instances, there were jobs even recruited for in their home countries, and people brought them here. Through what they call coyotes, traffickers and things like that. Many came here also because, especially with Mexico, which we have a huge border with, came here because our legal immigration system, for example, if a resident was married and wanted to petition for his wife, they had a backed up system, and they had to wait 4 or 5 years for that to happen. So rather than wait, they would come over. So these are complex issues, and I'm not saying that I would necessarily agree with giving these people any kind of benefit. I think you'd have to leave it up to the legislators if they can ever get together and decide. In my opinion, if they don't they haven't committed any felonies, any offenses, if they've paid their taxes, which many of these people, even though they're not required to, have paid taxes for years and years, and if they've done all these things that we consider, good moral character and things like that, I wouldn't have a problem. I wouldn't. I'm sure there's people out there that would, with providing them with a path to legalization. Because let's be real, they're going to be in the shadows all this time, and we're going to at some point we're going to have to be paying for this because we can't remove them. And rather than do that, I'd rather they pay into the system, I'd rather they would, and I'd rather they come out of the shadows. But to your point, that's one of those issues where I don't think there's ever going to be any compromise. I think we can have compromise on the DACA kids, and just so that you understand, it's not that easy if you come here illegally for your child after 21 to petition for you, because then you have
to show a history.
Oh, no, and also you have accumulated unlawful presence, and we don't have any forgiveness for that. So many of these people may be stuck for years and years and years to come. I mean, the immigration laws are terribly, terribly complex, which is what creates a lot of the uncertainty.
And another point I wanted to make was many of these people I know use traffickers to reach the United States, whether it's like through box trucks or whatever, and I know that they're paying these people. I saw reports from the Department of Homeland Security where it's like $7,000 to $10,000 a head. So to me, in a lot of ways, my husband actually is an immigrant, legal. He went through the steps and the motions. It cost around like $4,000.
Yeah, it's
but
approximately
he got
that.
an attorney.
Yeah.
Yes. So now I know that's different. You can petition and do it yourself. But $4,000 is a lot cheaper than paying a trafficker $10,000 to sneak you over in a box truck, right?
Yeah, but if you don't have a spouse that can petition for you, then you don't have that avenue. And
but the other thing, before I forget my point, the other thing that I was thinking is that a lot of these people, now I live in Florida, obviously, so I know a lot of people that are illegal, and we talk a lot, and a lot of these people don't even want to be legal. They just want to, they're like economic migrants, where they'll come in, make a lot of money, send it back in, I forget what they call that, when they send the money back to Mexico. They're living like kings. It's not really in their interest, because here, if you live on an American salary, you're pretty much either rich or poor in America anymore. The most, you just live, pay taxes and die. But back there, the money is worth so much more. A lot of these people tell me they don't even want to be legal. So it's easier for them to pay a trafficker to get them in. They get the money and they get out.
Well,
and
Mandy,
so
thank you for calling. Thank you for calling, Mandy. I got other customers.
Thanks, honey. I really appreciate it.
Okay, listen, I got to do one more time. I haven't got a call on my trivia yet, and we're going to go to Chuck. But let me give you that trivia one more time. I received 2 undergraduate degrees and a medical degree, served 2 years as a Peace Corps medical officer in West Africa, and was selected to join the National Aeronautics and Space Administration's astronaut training program. My 8-day space flight aboard Space Shuttle Endeavour in 1992 made me the first female African American to travel in space. Who am I? For your gift certificate. And Chuck on line 3.
Hey, Rudy, how you doing this evening?
Okay.
Good. Hey, thanks for having your guest on. I know the woman's face, but I don't have Google present with me, so I'll leave that to somebody else. But a question to your guest. Thank you for coming on tonight. I was just curious as to trying to understand the DACA program, that you said that they can get driver's licenses.
Correct.
And Social Security cards?
Yes, they get this kind of Social Security card that says valid only with employment authorization, so that because they're working, they're paying taxes, they need to show documentation. They need a temporary Social Security.
Okay.
But Chuck, before we move off of that, let me explode this one myth that has been going on out there. They can't get SNAP benefits.
No.
They're not.
I know that.
Welfare.
Okay, a lot of people don't. They think that they're getting welfare and food stamps, and they are not allowed to get it except in extraordinary circumstances. But typically, it's illegal for them to have those benefits.
Right. Well, I understand that part. I was just, the driver's license. now that I know, is there anything on the driver's license that says anything like the
No,
Social Security? No, just regular.
just a regular driver's license.
I got my driver's license renewed recently, and there's a star on it, and it has something to do with Homeland Security.
It has to do with the Patriot Act.
Yeah,
Okay,
that's the Real ID Act, actually. Yes.
Would these folks that are getting these driver's licenses maybe lack that star on?
No. The licenses are the same. The thing is, they actually go through a lot more scrutiny than you and I do. Right. Their information has to be then emailed to Tallahassee, and they need to they corroborate that the status is legal by Homeland Security standards. They actually communicate, and then they give them the status. I have people waiting 6-7 weeks for a driver's license that,
Right.
So but the driver's license itself is not any different than yours or mine.
All right.
It's just actually it may be limited in we will get one for 10 years. They'll get one for the life of the employment authorization. So let's say they have a what we call an EAD card, an employment authorization card that is only 2 years. Because that's all the DACA program allows for, they will have a driver's license that's valid concurrently with that employment authorization, only for 2 years.
I see. Yeah. And the way you've been talking, you seem to favor the DACA children, or whatever you want to call them. Some of them are adults now. You seem to favor them over the other illegal immigrants. It's just what I'm perceiving off the way you're speaking.
Well, when you say DACA, you are limiting that to Latin American people. DACA includes Haitians and Africans.
Every nationality, actually. I
said DACA. I didn't say Latin American or anything. I'm just saying. I was just getting a perception from your guest. I'm not trying to start an argument.
Let me tell you where I stand on it. Listen, I've been doing this for many years, and Rudy didn't tell you, but my background is I worked many years for nonprofit organizations, and I've definitely my heart encompasses every single one. What I understand in this day and age is that and we were talking to the previous guest, is that there's a lot of anti-immigrant feeling and anti-immigrant sentiment, and we it doesn't. I'm trying to reach some sort of agreement. It doesn't mean that I want every single person deported, or that I think these illegals, as the people call them, are bad people. They're my clients.
Oh, they're not bad people.
No, of course not. So my personal opinion is that we should strengthen our border laws. I think, and we should be much more consistent in our immigration laws, and there should be a lot of changes, because the immigration system is not fair, and it's not humanitarian, and it doesn't allow for a lot of the issues we are seeing today in terms of family reunification. I am 1,000% in favor of family reunification, and people who come here, we haven't even discussed that, fleeing horrible, horrible country situations, and we're sending people back to die. So I am very much pro undocumented immigrants.
Yeah, I understand that. But
Chuck, I gotta let you go.
All right.
I gotta.
Okay, Rudy.
Okay, thank you. Renee, on line 1.
Hello there.
Oh my gosh.
A familiar voice or what?
Hi, Rudy.
Renee, do you know all? How do you know so much about Africa?
Let me tell you something. I love NASA and NASCAR. We live so close to the Cape, man. So I mean, and I know it's Black History Month, so hey, a lot of clues.
Well, my friend, you're right again. It's Mae Jameson. You got it.
All right. Just continue on with your show. Interesting guest you have today.
Okay. Thank you, my friend.
All right, buddy.
Okay, we're going to take a little break.
I hope interesting means good.
Yeah.
He's
a good guy.
Believe me, if they don't like it, they'll tell us.
Yeah.
Oh, goodness.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much.
Renee and I go way back. But anyway, don't you touch that dial, because we're going to be right back with the African-American scene. And I got another trivia question. We only got 10 minutes left.
Okay.
But if you're good enough, you can get it.
Serving the entire Treasure Coast, Howard Insurance and Associates in Port St. Lucie offers a wide variety of insurance products, along with the very best customer service. Whether you're shopping for the best homeowners coverage at the most affordable value, contact Rudy Howard's team at Howard Insurance and Associates. If you need coverage for your vehicle, call Howard Insurance and Associates, 343-9878. That's 343-9878. Maybe you're planning to add a boat, motorcycle, or RV. Call Howard Insurance and Associates for your free quote at 343-9878 and get the coverage you need at a cost that will fit your budget. For home or business, auto or recreational vehicle, choose Howard Insurance and Associates, 600 Southwest Darwin Boulevard, Suite 206, Port St. Lucie. And for your free rate quote, call them at 343-9878, 343-9878. WPSL Digital 1590 presents CBS Storm Track Weather.
I'm CBS 12 meteorologist Michael Ehrenberg. We're looking at fair to partly cloudy skies for tonight with some patchy late night and morning fog in some areas. Our low temperatures will drop down into the low to mid 60s. A mix of sunny clouds coming your way for Thursday, and with a southwest wind flow, near record heat possible with highs in the mid to upper 80s. On your Friday, a cool front moves into the area with cloudy skies, a few spotty showers, your Friday high in the low 80s. Behind the front, windy, much cooler with sunny skies for the weekend. I'm CBS 12 meteorologist Michael Ehrenberg for WPSL Digital 1590, the talk of the Treasure Coast.
Thank you, Michael. And weather this hour has been brought to you by Seacoast Air Conditioning, your hometown air conditioning company since 1982. For repairs or a whole new system, call them at 772-466-2400.
Comfort crisis, don't roast, call Seacoast.
We now return you to the African American scene live and in progress here in our studios. Now, once again, here's Rudy Howard.
We don't have much time, but I'm going to give you this other question. And if we don't get it tonight, I will just roll it over one more week since I do have the certificate. Now, I was known as the soybean chemist for my extraordinary success in developing innovative drugs and industrial chemicals from natural soya products. I have more than 130 patents and many professional awards. Aha, now think about that. I was born in 1899 and died in 1975. Who am I? I'm known as the soybean chemist. If you get that, you get a surprise.
You know, we've had enough health food radio shows on this station over the decades that we've been doing all this. Somebody out there's going to remember something.
Yeah. Winnie on line one. Yes, Winnie.
How you doing? And Jess and Cliff, everybody. I have met this lady. She an African American lady, and she said, but this guy, her husband, fiance, he got two Tyler. She said her boyfriend, and then she said her husband. Anyway, he from Trinidad, and she was saying something about a green card, or he become a citizen. Could you tell me more about that?
So if
she marry him or something?
Well, if she does marry him, she's clearly, I'm guessing your friend is a United States citizen born in the United States, so she has the ability to what we call petition for him. If he came through Trinidad on an airplane, he probably was what we call inspected, so he can pretty much get his paperwork that way. Just to, it's a process that's going to take the Immigration and Naturalization Service, or United States Citizenship and Immigration Service, as they call themselves now. It's going to take him about 8 months to process, but he can get his residency if they get married and they file the proper paperwork. He would get what we call a conditional residency, and then after 2 years, it would become permanent.
At 3 years. And what about the green card?
That's the green card. That's the residency is what it's the people call it a green card, but that's what we call the permanent residency. And that allows you to work and pay taxes and register for selective service and do all the good things that us Americans get to do.
Oh, okay. All right. Thank you.
You're very welcome.
Thank you, Winnie. Wow. And man, the phones have just lit up. We didn't hardly get to any of the things that we talked about before the show.
Well, that's a good thing.
Yeah.
Yes, it's always a good thing.
Yeah. So I hope some of you have a better understanding of what DACA is all about, because one of the things that Marisol said, I'd like to come on the show and talk about it, and I was just delighted when she said that, having known her for so long. Matter of fact, Marisol, I'm going to put you on the spot now. We just didn't have enough time, so I'd like to invite you back again next month.
Oh, I would love to.
We'll pick a date, and we'll have you back next month, and we will continue this discussion about immigration, because evidently people are interested in it, and you're able to give them firsthand information, which is very important, because as you said, there's so much misinformation out there. And I've done some research on it, the thing about the welfare benefits, and conservative Steve was trying to tell me about how much it was going to cost us. And then they say that most of the DACA people are criminals, and you know that's very frustrating too.
Children.
But this is the thing. I mean, some of them have they have to be under 31. They have to have been born before 1981. I mean, I'm sorry, after 1981. But the two things that are really important. They can't be criminals because of what I told you before. There's a lot of restrictions in who gets to apply, and you can't have any kind of criminal background. And the other thing is, we've invested on these kids. Rudy and I are talking about this. They've gone to our high schools. They've gone to our colleges. They are, we don't want to give them up.
Our
These
kids
are people,
know them. They're friends with our children.
And they're going to produce income, be good to our community, pay taxes. They're law-abiding citizens. Why are we going to give? We invested in them already. So whatever they have to pay to get that green card, I think is going to be very cost effective for us, because these are our military personnel, our teachers, our doctors, our people working everywhere in the fields, in construction. They're everywhere. I mean, they're in higher education and doing, working everywhere, everywhere you see them.
Yeah, I read an article, and I have here that the economic impact to remove all the DACA people would be about 24 billion years over 10 years just to our Social Security system.
That's another thing. They are contributing. We don't realize they are contributing to a Social Security system that's broken. So we probably need them more than we realize.
Well, I've talked about this before. People don't realize what a significant contribution they make, and in some cases, too many cases, they will get nothing.
Well, their parents that the other caller was talking about, their parents are, most of my clients that are undocumented pay taxes with an ITIN number, with a tax ID number, and they're never going to see a penny out of that. They're not going to see Social Security. They're not going to see, all these other supposed Medicare, nothing. I mean, they're never going to see that. So there's definitely some contribution that we're not taking into consideration.
Yeah, and I'm glad you said that, because I've said this on the show before, and I think some of them think I was blowing smoke at them, that there was people out there paying these taxes and not deriving any benefit, which inures to the benefit of us.
Yes.
Unknowingly, we are getting the benefit of these illegal people paying taxes into our system that's helping to support our Social Security system and other things in our community. And you're screaming and hollering like they're committing a murder. And listen, I just saw that recently, what you just talked about. I read that when I was doing some research. About $860 million was lost in California because of the halting of immigration. They couldn't pick the crops.
Oh no, it's crazy. I was reading articles. It's not just California; it's all of that coast, the West Coast, and I think it's in other states as well. I think I read Oregon was affected. It's everywhere, and the problem is that I don't know how you're going to replace these people.
Well, listen, you know what I said? It's like, all right, let's go ahead and get rid of them. And when you're paying $4 for a tomato, then you'll be like, wait a minute.
Where's one?
Yeah, right.
Do you remember a few years ago they had a day without any Hispanics. So when nobody went to work, no Hispanics went to work that day. Remember that?
They did that in California.
They did
I think
it
it was
here. We have a Spanish Mexican radio station.
Yes,
here.
she knows
and,
about that. Yeah,
they all had the day off that day too, and there was a lot of support and a lot of participation. But I wonder what kind of a loss our produce department saw during this time.
Hey, listen, let me tell you something, man. This is what Marisol and I saw. This is serious business, and it's gonna move its way across here to hit our pocket. And it's just like, here's the other one I told them about, Marisol, and I know we're getting to the end of the hour. Most of these people that work in the hotels and clean the rooms.
Oh, no, service industry.
Yeah,
tourism. Our tourism's going to be affected tremendously.
Right, so when you go to the hotel and you don't have nobody to clean your room anymore, how are you going to feel about that?
And who's going to pour your coffee on that continental breakfast?
There you go.
Yeah.
My friend, thank you so much for being
here. Very welcome.
And I got you to promise you'll come back.
I will definitely come back.
And so we're going to have Marisol back again next month because so many of you were interested.
And maybe I'll get to meet Steve.
Conservative
Steve.
Conservative Steve. We'll make sure he calls in.
Okay.
Folks, thank you so much for tuning into the African American scene. God bless and be safe, and I'll see you next Wednesday at 5 o'clock for the African American scene.
Yes, next week, a special time, 5 o'clock next week, because we'll have IRSC basketball next week. You've been listening to the African American scene with Rudy Howard on WPSL.